When people hear the phrase the Dark Ages, they usually imagine a world plunged into ignorance, crumbling Roman roads, empty cities. Superstitious peasants, knowledge lost, progress frozen. 1,000 years of darkness between the glory of Rome and the light of the Renaissance. But here's the uncomfortable truth: the Dark Ages may not have been dark at all. The idea of a Dark Age was not created by the people who lived through it. It was invented later by writers who wanted to make themselves look enlightened by comparison. And once that label stuck, it reshaped how generations imagined an entire era of human history. So, what really happened after Rome fell? When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in the 5th century, Europe did not suddenly forget how to think. What disappeared was centralized authority. Roads weren't maintained. Tax systems broke down. Cities shrank, trade slowed. For people living through it, the world felt smaller, more local, and more uncertain. To someone used to Roman order, it probably felt like collapse. But collapse does not mean stupidity. Life reorganized itself. Power shifted from emperors to local kings and warlords. Communities became more rural. Survival mattered more than philosophy. And yes, some knowledge was lost, but not because people stopped caring. It was lost because copying books by hand is slow, fragile work, and chaos does not protect libraries. Still, knowledge did not vanish. In monasteries scattered across Europe, monks quietly copied texts by candlelight. They preserved Roman law, Greek philosophy, mathematics, medicine, and theology. Without them, much of ancient knowledge would be gone forever. These monks were not ignorant. They were disciplined scholars working in brutal conditions. While Western Europe struggled, other parts of the world thrived. In the Islamic world, scholars translated and expanded on Greek science, algebra, astronomy, and medicine. Cities like Baghdad became centers of learning. In China, innovation continued with printing, gunpowder, and advanced engineering. In India, mathematics flourished. The world did not go dark. Europe simply stopped being the center of it. Even within Europe, progress never fully stopped. New farming tools appeared. Heavy plows improved food production, crop rotation spread. Watermills and windmills multiplied. Languages evolved, legal systems adapted. Christianity unified cultures while also shaping education and morality. These were not the actions of a civilization asleep, so where did the myth come from? Much of it comes from Renaissance thinkers who saw themselves as rediscovering ancient wisdom after a long pause. To make their rebirth feel dramatic, they needed a dark before the dawn. Later, Enlightenment writers doubled down, portraying the medieval period as backward and superstitious to emphasize reason and science. It was propaganda, subtle but effective. Calling the era dark erased its complexity. It ignored the fact that most people were too busy surviving to build marble statues or write philosophy. It judged the past by standards that only make sense in peaceful, wealthy societies. Were there problems? Absolutely. Violence was common. Education was limited. The so-called Dark Ages were not an empty gap in history. They were a bridge. A messy, uneven transition between ancient and modern worlds. A time when old systems died and new ones struggled to be born. A period of adaptation, not total failure, and here's the most important part. If the Dark Ages were truly dark, the Renaissance could never have happened. The knowledge that later generations celebrated had to survive somewhere, and it did quietly, imperfectly, stubbornly passed down by people who believed it mattered, even when the world around them was unstable. So the real question isn't whether the Dark Ages were ignorant. It is whether calling them dark says more about later generations than about the people who lived through them. History is rarely a straight line of progress. Sometimes it bends, sometimes it slows. Sometimes it retreats before moving forward again. The so-called Dark Ages remind us that survival itself can be a form of intelligence and that light doesn't disappear just because it burns out of sight. The darkness, it turns out, may have been in the story we told afterward.